Hello everyone, you have come to Tata Comic Preview channel. Let read together. Have fun. Jiantingzhong said, "You're already injured. It's enough to stop you," Xianchengzi said. Mo Xinglu flew in another direction and blocked Jiantingzhong and Mo Bian. Two 10-leaf elites were more than enough to stop two 9-leaf cultivators even if they were injured. Moreover, most of the other 9-leaf cultivators had already lost their ability to fight. It was considered good enough if they could fly, how could they fight? Jiantingzhong raised his head and looked at Yu Qinshu. At this time, Yu Qinshu had unleashed his power again in the air, holding onto the confinement seal. Courtmaster Yu hasn't even unleashed all his strength yet. Do you really think this is the extent of his strength? Jiantingzhong asked. Upon hearing this, Xianchengzi and Mo Xinglu looked at the sky cautiously. They hoped Yu Qinshu and Lu Zhou would fight each other until both of them were heavily injured. At that time, they would be able to reap the benefits. At this moment, Yu Qinshu looked at Lu Zhou, who was looking down at him angrily. Following that, he struck with his palm again. A small red palm seal that looked incredibly ordinary shot out. However, when it arrived in front of Lu Zhou, it rapidly expanded by dozens of feet. Lu Zhou had expected this. At this moment, his whole body was shrouded by golden flames like a Buddha. Bzzzt. Just like that, Lu Zhou nullified the red palm seal. A Buddhist elite. Even when Lu Zhou was in the Golden Lotus domain, he had already mastered the techniques from the school of Confucian, Buddhism, and Taoism. When he used the Golden Buddha body, he no longer needed to rely on an item card or his extraordinary power. The 10-leaf Golden Buddha body that was bathed in golden flames was dazzling. With the sun shining down on him, he looked like a divine being, filling people with the urge to worship him. The weak cultivators present on the scene gulped. They could not bear to look away from the Golden Buddha body in the sky. Soon enough, Lu Zhou withdrew the Golden Buddha body, and he dove. At the same time, he made a few twisting motions with his right hand before he pushed it forward. The 9 cut hand seals. The Soul Diamond Seal, the Great Blitz Treasure Seal, the Outer Circle Mystic Seal, the Inner 8 World Seals, the Fetterless Seal, the Pantheon Seal, the 8 Trigrams Seal, the Magic Gourd Seal, and the Sun Moon Seal appeared, corresponding with the 9 cut hand seals. Each of the seals was related to the 9 mantras. The seals revolved around 9 palm seals. Most terrifyingly, the palm seals were also shrouded in golden karmic flames. At this moment, the 9 palm seals struck. For a long time now, Yu Qinshu had never felt threatened. He had never felt so much pressure as he did today. He glared at Lu Zhou and raised the small pagoda in his hand. The confinement seal instantly enlarged to form a barrier, shielding him. Boom. 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 The 9 palm seals struck the confinement seal, producing a thunderous noise. With each hit from a palm seal, Yu Qinshu would fall for dozens of meters. Meanwhile, Lu Zhou drew closer and closer to Yu Qinshu. When the 5th palm seal struck, Yu Qinshu's back hit the cliff. Boom. Yu Qinshu tried with all his might to maintain the confinement seal to block the remaining palm seals. The next 4 palm seals struck one after another. With each palm strike, Yu Qinshu and the confinement seal were pressed harder against the cliff. When the last palm seal struck, Yu Qinshu was completely stuck in the cliff wall. At this moment, the sky above Skywheel Mountain Range was as silent as a graveyard. The air was incredibly still now that the raging energies had dissipated. Although Lu Zhou's palm seals were powerful, Yu Qinshu should have been able to deal with them. After all, they were both 10-leaf elites and karmic fire users. Moreover, Yu Qinshu also wielded the flood-grade weapon. The cultivators in the surroundings did not dare to move at all, nor did they dare to make a sound. They could only watch in shock. Bang. At this moment, the confinement seal suddenly shot out from the cliff toward Lu Zhou as red karmic fire raged everywhere. Meanwhile, Yu Qinshu followed closely behind the confinement seal, wielding a red long spear with both hands. The Black Dragon Spear. It's a desolate grade weapon. Using the cliff and the power of the confinement seal as leverage, Yu Qinshu shot out and quickly arrived in front of Zhou. He used all his strength as a 10-leaf cultivator and thrust the spear toward Zhou. Zhou retaliated by launching several palm seals as he flew backward. He turned his right hand over discreetly and unnamed appeared in his hand in the form of a shield. Shield. An oval shield burning with golden flames deflected the black dragon spear and the confinement seal. Bang. The black dragon shield landed on the shield. It's a flood-grade shield. Who's this person? The cultivators were shocked and confused. Most people would choose an offensive weapon like swords, sabers, spears, clubs, and halberds if they had a choice. They might even choose assistive weapons that could restrain their opponents or boost their strength. There were almost no cultivators who would choose a defensive weapon. This was the first time all of them had seen a flood-grade shield. Even if we don't gain anything, it's worth it just to watch this battle. At the same time, the Sky Martial Court, the True Kunlun Sect, the Void Sect, and the other sects were also watching the battle. The two opponents would decide everyone's outcome. There was nothing they could do at all. At this moment, Yu Qinshu cried out, "It's my time to show you my strength." As the red karmic fire burned, Yu Qinshu's hands turned fiery red as he wielded the black dragon spear and continued to stab unnamed. One of the cultivators said, "This is a good move. He'll have to change his tactic now. Otherwise, he'd be pushed up high into the sky where the primal chi is thin." Zhou said indifferently, "Is this the extent of your strength?" Then, he said curtly, "Go down." Zhou's finger shone with a blue light again. The extraordinary power from the scrolls of the heavenly writing was domineering as it shrouded unnamed. A shrill and ear-piercing noise rang in the air as the black dragon spear was repelled and bounced back. Most terrifyingly, the spear was bent. Due to the immense pressure, Yu Qinshu had no choice but to let go of the spear. With that, the black dragon spear fell out of his hand. Unnamed, in the form of a shield, continued to press down on the confinement seal. The confinement seal was no match for it at all, especially now that it had been boosted with the extraordinary power. Bang. Unnamed slammed fiercely against Yu Qinshu's chest. Yu Qinshu, Great Tang's only 10-leaf karmic fire user, was heavily struck and spat out a mouthful of blood. Due to the red energy around him, it was difficult to distinguish between his blood and the red energy. The cultivators were dumbfounded when they saw Yu Qinshu spitting out a mouthful of blood. Similarly, Yu Qinshu was shocked as well. He could feel the blood chi in his body raging uncomfortably. Court Master Mo Bian and Jiantingzhong cried out in unison. They really wanted to go over to help Yu Qinshu, but they knew they would only be seeking death to interfere in a battle between 10-leaf elites. Meanwhile, the two 10-leaf elites, Xian Chengzi and Mo Xinglu, were shocked as well. Although Yu Qinshu was also a 10-leaf elite like them, in comparison to them, Yu Qinshu might as well be an 11-leaf elite. Then, what about this middle-aged man who managed to push Yu Qinshu to a corner? At this moment, Yu Qinshu's confidence began to waver. He hid the shock he felt as he glared at Zhou. Was this the power of the birth chart? No. The two birth chart masters from 2,000 years ago were not like this. The person in front of him was barbaric and unreasonably strong. After a beat, Yu Qinshu landed on the top of the mountain and stomped his feet, causing them to sink into the ground. With that, rocks began to roll down the mountain. Zhou looked down at Yu Qinshu from the sky and said, "Your body tempering is really good." Yu Qinshu chuckled and wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth before he said, "Since I was young, the efforts I have put in are hundreds and thousands more compared to other people. That's how I can get to where I am today. I'm invulnerable to poison, fire, water, and weapons. Before he finished speaking, he coughed out another mouthful of blood. Zhou shook his head and said, "I'd like to see what kind of monster you are." Zhou flipped his palm and the golden Taishu mirror appeared in his hand. The sound of primal chi rang in the air immediately. Someone cried out, "A desolate grade mirror." At this time, all the cultivators felt as though their views had been upended when they saw Zhou bringing out one desolate grade weapon after another. The Sky Marshal Court was filled with treasures, but it seemed like this person was not inferior to the Sky Marshal Court at all. A golden beam of light shone out of the golden taishu mirror like a spotlight on Yu Qinshu. The mirror showed a 10-leaf avatar behind Yu Qinshu, but that was it. Lu Zhou frowned slightly. That's all? Is it possible that the desolate grade golden taishu mirror is unable to reflect Yu Qinshu's true form? The Skywheel Mountain Range has been surrounded. We still don't know who the winner will be, Yu Qinshu said as he endured the pain in his chest. Lu Zhou replied, "You're the same as Yizhen. Your blind confidence makes you look stupid." Lu Zhou recited the mantra from the scrolls of the heavenly writing. Soon enough, extraordinary power shrouded the golden taishu mirror. The originally golden beam of light turned blue as it shone on Yu Qinshu. At this moment, a shocking scene appeared before everyone's eyes. Only Yu Qinshu's skeletons were reflected in the golden taishu mirror. Now that the golden taishu mirror was boosted with the extraordinary power, nothing could hide from it. Apart from the full skeleton of a human, there was a stone-like humanoid puppet that looked creepy. A few cultivators began to discuss among themselves. What's that? I've never seen something like this before. This mirror should be something that can reveal one's true form. Is that puppet a substitute or some kind of immortal body? No one knew what it was they were seeing. Lu Zhou thought the golden taishu mirror would reflect the 9 infants. There was no one who liked their secrets exposed, let alone an arrogant person like Yu Qinshu. He grew enraged and stomped violently on the ground before he shot toward Lu Zhou. For a moment, Yu Qinshu's red karmic fire and the confinement seal overwhelmed the light from the golden taishu mirror. There's nothing you can do to me. Yu Qinshu shot up into the sky as talismans flew out of his body. As the talismans burned, a sea of fire appeared in the sky, causing the temperature to rise sharply. Even the birth chart beast in the forest seemed to have sensed the high temperature and came to a halt. Lu Zhou put the golden taishu mirror away and said tonelessly, "I don't care if you're human or a ghost, just take this palm strike of mine." Lu Zhou used 1/4 of his extraordinary power in the blue palm seal that were the size of the valley's entrance. Just the fingers were as huge as a mountain. The abandoned wisdom was dazzling. Boom. It landed true on Yu Qinshu. No one was surprised when he fell down. He hit the cliff with a loud boom, causing several cracks to appear. When he finally landed, he seemed lifeless. The cultivators. Lu Zhou frowned when he did not receive the notification for killing Yu Qinshu. Is he really immortal? He flipped his palm, and unnamed appeared again. Lu Zhou still had a lot of strength left. If he could not kill Yu Qinshu with his own strength, he would just use his item cards then. Meanwhile, everyone seemed to be in a daze, unable to tear their eyes away from the scene. On the other hand, Xian Chengzi and Mo Xinglu even thought of fleeing along with Jian Tingzhong and Mo Bian. They felt an unprecedented danger. How could they still think of reaping the benefits? It was just wishful thinking on their behalf. At this time, upon seeing Mo Xinglu and Xian Chengzi distracted, they exchanged a look. Let's go. The duo flew southeast of the Skywheel Mountain Range like a fired arrow. Lu Zhou turned around and shook his head. You dare covet my things? Unnamed turned into a bow immediately. The bow and arrow were shrouded with golden energy and was the size of a person. Lu Zhou used 1/4 of the extraordinary power in the 2 arrows. Zing. The sound of the arrow being fired rang in the air. One arrow shot to the left while the other one shot to the right, accurately piercing Jianting and Mo Bian's hearts at lightning speed. As the life heart dropped from the sky, Lu Zhou flew over to it. The speed of a 10-leaf elite was something the others could only watch helplessly. As Lu Zhou dove, he pushed his palm out. A palm seal shot out and grabbed the life heart like a dragon's claws. After retrieving the life heart, he inspected it for a moment and confirmed it was the Yang's life heart before he put it away in the pocket near his chest. Although Mo Bian and Jian Tingzhong's hearts had been cleanly pierced by the arrows and they were still falling from the sky, Lu Zhou had to receive the notifications of their deaths. When the duo landed on the ground, he brought out the golden taishu mirror again and shone it on them, but it did not show anything strange. He was still mulling over this matter when the notification finally arrived. Ding. Killed a target. Obtained 1,500 merit points, domain bonus 1,000 points. Ding. Killed a target. Obtained 1,500 merit points. Domain bonus 1,000 points. Ding. Obtained the Dragon Eagle's Fury and the Flash Hook. Do you wish to retrieve them? Retrieve them. The two weapons flew towards Lu Zhou's hand. Once a weapon reached the Earth grade, it would be able to recognize its master. If the bond between the owner and the weapon were strong, the owner would be able to wield it to its full potential. After reaching the Heaven grade, the weapon's strength would increase tremendously and gain the ability to break barriers. When it reached the Desolate grade, one could freely manipulate its size and shape. Since Lu Zhou obtained this weapon from the system, he did not need to manipulate its size to store it. He really did not expect the two elders to possess Desolate grade weapons. The trip here was a huge win for him. Following that, Lu Zhou returned to the top of the valley and looked down. Lu Zhou turned around and flew towards the direction of the canyon. The cultivators from the Void Sect and the True Kunlun Sect had retreated dozens of meters away when they saw Lu Zhou. Chills ran up their spines, and they wished they could turn tail and flee. The Skywheel Rift Valley was as silent as a graveyard at this moment. The cultivators around the mountain range rose up into the sky to watch from afar. None of them dared to move closer. All in all, there were almost 1,000 cultivators in the sky. On the other hand, the number of cultivators on land was even more numerous. There were almost 1,000 of these cultivators altogether. Lu Zhou did not pay attention to the others, he kept his eyes trained on Yu Qinshu. He was certain Yu Qinshu was not dead, after all. Bang. At the moment, the confinement seal flew up, stirring up debris. Yu Qinshu's alive. The victor is uncertain. This is too exciting. The cultivators hovering nearby were now more like moviegoers, here to watch a show. They seemed to no longer care about obtaining treasures. All of them were curious as to who would emerge victorious. When the floodgrade confinement seal rushed toward Lu Zhou, he pushed his hand out again. A huge palm seal appeared, blocking the confinement seal. Bang. 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 Thunderous noises rang in the air as the confinement seal rammed against the golden palm seal, trying to break it. Boom. Yu Qinshu leaped out suddenly at lightning speed. Compared to earlier when he was calm and in a pristine condition, he looked disheveled and was covered in dust at this moment. There was blood on his face, and blood stained his chest and torn robes. As he flew toward the confinement seal, he spread his arms. Buzz. Yu Qinshu manifested his avatar. This was the first time he manifested his avatar since the battle began. The 200-foot Red Lotus avatar was different in the sense that its red was different from the usual Red Lotus avatars. Instead, his avatar was the dark red of blood. The debris and rubble near him were sent flying by his energy as he flew. Subsequently, Yu Qinshu raised his hand. The black dragon spear that was lying on the ground flew into his hand immediately. He tightened his grip on the black dragon spear as primal chi surged from his body. Then, he spat a mouthful of blood on the black dragon's spear. The bent spear trembled for a moment before it miraculously straightened itself out. Then, the inscriptions on the body of the spear lit up. The cultivators watched in horror as they discussed among themselves. There are Dao inscriptions on the weapon? What do you mean? The Dao inscriptions are a large-scale array formation. They're not dissimilar to city defense formation. To inscribe them on a weapon, it requires high forging skills and cultivation bases. There should be fire spirit stones in the spear as well. Coupled with the Dao inscriptions, it will increase the strength of the flood-grade weapon for a short time. Something like this is possible? Everyone was surprised. Yes, but the price one has to pay is high as well. Fire spirit stones are originally used to improve the quality of weapons. However, if they are used in this way, it will damage the weapon. After the energy from the fire spirit stones is used up, the black dragon spear will probably fall to the heaven grade. The Sky Martial Court is really wealthy. I don't know how many weapons the Sky Martial Court had studied and forged back then. Apart from those we know of, I'm certain the others are all in Yu Qinshu's possession. One of them looked at Yu Qinshu, who was burning with fighting spirit, and seemed to have thought of something. It's said that the most perfect weapon in the Sky Martial Court is called the 9-string zither. Is it lost? It should have been taken away by Luo Xian. How could they lose such a treasure so easily? Unfortunately, no one has seen the 9-string zither before and its ability is unknown. At this time, the Black Dragon seal had completely repaired itself. Lu Zhou wanted to take down the confinement seal, but it kept struggling. Bang! At this moment, the confinement seal increased in size again, finally crushing the palm seal. Yu Qinshu wielded the boosted Desolate Grade Black Dragon Spear with both hands and advanced toward Lu Zhou with the confinement seal. Everyone cried out in surprise and held their breaths. Red energy swirled in the sky, but no one dared to blink, afraid of missing a shocking scene. Lu Zhou brought Unnamed out again. Yu Qinshu said coldly, "I won't make the same mistake again." Lu Zhou manipulated Unnamed and turned it into a hammer. Bzzzt. The hammer was shrouded with energy and crashed heavily against the Black Dragon Spear. Bang! Red sparks flew when the weapons collided, creating a dazzling firework. A flood-grade hammer? The cultivators watching the battle gradually felt numb. Who knew how many treasures these two people possessed? In fact, it was probable that they had not even brought out their trump cards. Meanwhile, Lu Zhou looked up and saw the confinement seal falling toward him. Lu Zhou used Unnamed, which was in the form of a hammer, to block Yu Qinshu's attack. However, if he was restrained by the confinement seal, it would be troublesome. Meanwhile, the confinement seal that was as huge as a tower continued to fall toward Lu Zhou. Avatar. Buzz. A 200-foot golden karmic fire avatar appeared immediately. Yu Qinshu was highly experienced in combat. He smirked upon seeing the avatar before he said, "I've been waiting for this moment." The confinement seal grew in size again. It was like an inescapable net. It was not troublesome when the confinement seal was small. Now that it had grown in size, coupled with Yu Qinshu's strong output of primal qi and red energy, a suction force had appeared, trying to pull Lu Zhou's avatar in. Lu Zhou frowned slightly. He had to admit Yu Qinshu's strength was also beyond his expectation. Needless to say, both men's strengths were beyond the spectator's imagination as well. Yu Qinshu's eyes were bloodshot at this moment. He asked smugly, as though certain of his victory, "Do you dare to use the power of the birth chart?" Under such circumstances, even if there were other 10-leaf karmic fire users, they would not be a match for Yu Qinshu. Needless to say, Yu Qinshu was much stronger than Yizhen. The only thing he could not compare to Yizhen was his intelligence. Stupid. Lu Zhou's gaze turned cold immediately. He extended his right hand and Unnamed that was shrouded in energy flew back into his hand before it turned back into a sword. Who are you calling stupid? Let's see how you block this. Now that Unnamed had turned into a sword, the Black Dragon Spear grew bigger with the help of the red energy and fell toward Lu Zhou like a giant pillar. It's black? Yu Qinshu looked at Unnamed in Lu Zhou's hand and saw the dragon-like runes on it. He felt inexplicably threatened, his hair stood on its end, and his body began to tremble as though he had been splashed with a bucket of ice-cold water. Lu Zhou tightened his grip around Unnamed as he used his energy to keep the confinement seal at bay. All of a sudden, Unnamed grew 30 feet long. The black runes and the blue extraordinary power merged and swept out. Bang! In fact, after Lu Zhou reached the 10-leaf stage, no one knew the true potential of Unnamed. The black runes coupled with the scrolls of the heavenly writing, it was definitely stronger than a flood-grade weapon. A crisp sound rang in the air and the Black Dragon Spear was cleaved into two by Unnamed's energy sword. The cultivators broke into an uproar again. A flood-grade sword? Lu Zhou saw a black rune disappearing with the wind. This was the cost of cleaving the Black Dragon Spear into two. He found this price acceptable. Currently, the Black Dragon Spear that had been broken had lost its luster. Yu Qinshu could only throw it aside. this weapon, Yu Chenshu was stunned. Lu Zhou waved his sword again as energy swords swept out. After throwing the spear aside, Yu Chenshu could only retreat and used his energy to deflect the attacks. He knew he could not allow the sword with black runes to touch him. When Lu Zhou saw Yu Chenshu keep retreating, he threw Unnamed aside. There were 4 sword paths. The highest sword path was to be able to use all things as a sword. Lu Zhou closed his eyes. He felt the air and the primal qi around him. He could feel the lives of all beings, the essence of the primal qi. He knew the true meaning of the sword. All of a sudden, Lu Zhou opened his eyes. Energy swords appeared and covered the sky. The wind, the primal qi, and even the vapor in the air were all turned into energy swords. Following that, all of the energy swords gathered around Unnamed. Yu Chenshu exclaimed inwardly upon seeing this, "This is bad." Yu Chenshu was pressed down until he landed in the valley. He can control so many energy swords? A cultivator said, the limit of the number of energy swords an ordinary 9-leaf cultivator can control is about 40,000. 10-leaf elites can control 100,000 energy swords at most. However, this man seems to be able to control hundreds of thousands of energy swords. When Yu Shangrong was studying the sword path, he had broken the limit and managed to control 60,000 energy swords. How would he feel if he were here to witness the unreasonable number of energy swords his master could control? The energy swords fell at this moment. All of them were stabbing in one direction. Ah! Yu Chenshu let out a heart-wrenching scream. No one knew if Unnamed stabbed Yu Chenshu, but there was no doubt he was injured by the countless energy swords. Meanwhile, Lu Zhou flew into the sky and smacked the bottom of the confinement seal as a blue lotus blossomed under his feet. This was another heaven-defying technique that shook the earth. Bang! The confinement seal could not withstand the extraordinary power from the heavenly writing and shrank immediately as it fell down. Lu Zhou swooped down and caught the confinement seal, which was the weapon Yu Chenshu was most proud of. Yu Chenshu looked at the sky as he extended his hands. Unnamed, along with hundreds of thousands of energy swords, accurately pierced his chest. If one looked closely, one would be able to see some of the runes on Unnamed had disappeared. After unleashing these 2 moves, Lu Zhou was only left with very little extraordinary power. Apart from that, he only had 1/3 left of his power from his 10-leaf cultivation base. Lu Zhou flew to the top of the confinement seal and stomped on it. Boom! Following that, the confinement seal landed heavily on the ground, partially buried. At this moment, the valley had been turned into ruins. Thousands of cultivators in the surroundings looked at Lu Zhou in the center of the valley. They also saw Yu Chenshu in a strange posture. His head was lifted, as though he was looking at the sky, while a bloody hole could be seen where his chest used to be. Meanwhile, Unnamed was stabbed into the ground behind Yu Chenshu.